Hey there, it's Kat Kinsman, Executive Features Editor at Food & Wine, and this fall, we're launching the new Food & Wine Classic in Charleston with our partners at Southern Living and Travel + Leisure, and we want to see you there. Join us September 27th through the 29th to learn from iconic chefs, share a glass with innovative wine experts, and experience Charleston with one-of-a-kind events. Tickets are on sale now at foodandwine.com/Charleston Classic. That's foodandwine.com/Charleston Classic. See you down in Charleston.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Since 2009, HRN podcasts have been exploring the wide world of food, beverage, and agriculture. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
Whether you're a chef or just love going to restaurants, you know the best ingredients are everything. Westholme is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Learn more at westholme.com.
We talk about food, we talk about music, with musical dudes. Finger on the pulse, snacky tunes.
Hello and welcome to Snacky Tunes. I'm your host, Darren Bresnitz. This week we have a all-new special episode celebrating the new book, Taste in Music, which is a fantastic and fun look to eating on tour with indie musicians, written by and compiled by Real Estate's Alec Bleeker and Frankie Cosmos, Luke Pienson. And Alex was kind enough to provide 3 live tracks throughout the episode, and it's just a really fun conversation and a really fantastic look into what it means when the meals on the road are just as important as the shows they play. So please sit back, relax, and welcome to Snacky Tunes here on HRN.
Hey old man, I heard you had to skip town. Hey old man, I heard you had to skip town. You had a 20th century style, but it's the 21st century now, and they sent you packing down that old highway. Well, my friend, it was a long time ago. Hey old man, it was a long time ago. It was a public masquerade. It was a media tirade. And no regrets means no love lost, I'm afraid. I want a cup of coffee, mashed potatoes and juice. I want a cup of coffee, mashed potatoes and juice. I want peace and justice, but really, what's the use? Well, my friend, you better go get a job. Hey man, they tell you go get a job. Don't break your back, it'll be a real shame. But making music is a young man's game, and they're never gonna play your song on the radio. I want a cup of coffee, mashed potatoes and juice. I want a cup of coffee, mashed potatoes and juice. I want peace and justice, but really, what's the use?
Hello and welcome to Snacky Tunes. That was just Mashed Potatoes, which seemed like the most appropriate song to kick off this episode with Alex Bleeker and Luke Pyenson of Real Estate and Frankie Cosmos, respectively, whose new book, Taste in Music, is essentially one of the most fun reads I've had in a long time. It's musicians on the road telling their food stories, and Alex was kind enough to grace us with a few live tracks. Give us a little story about mashed potatoes that opened up the show.
Well, first of all, we're doing the food music pod here. I feel like mashed potatoes kind of nails it. Had to think of songs that I've written that are food related, at least to some degree. I think when I this song is on my most recent solo record, the non-live version. It will probably not surprise some listeners to know that I was listening to a lot of the basement tape outtakes at the time. So, I don't know if it's revealing too much or getting behind the sort of mysticism of it all, but it's a total non sequitur. I want a cup of coffee, mashed potatoes, and juice. I mean, I enjoy all of those things independently, sometimes together, but I was trying my hand at a little Dylan-esque, poetic non sequitur there, and that's where I landed. So that tells you something about me. Straight to food. Okay, where can I go that's a total left turn from what the verse lyrics are about in this song? Let's list three things that I can ingest and put in my body. Bam.
I love it. I know
a place to get those three things together. Close to my college, there was a diner that the hash browns were mashed potatoes just on a griddle. And so you could enjoy that. I don't know. It works.
Okay.
It works.
I mean, I get the crusty outside, the creamy inside, but I'm a
it's not my preferred way.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's good.
Let's we'll leave it there and we'll move on because I feel like we can spend the whole time. Look, you came out saying it's not your preferred form of breakfast potatoes, and we're good.
I'm a big diner guy.
I love the book.
So subconsciously, perhaps that's sorry to run over you there, though. But the diner thing, I haven't even considered it. That resonates with me. Most of the time, there's no place I'd rather be than sitting in a diner.
Well, I mean, that really is sort of the essence of being on the road and eating good food. I feel like you're lucky enough to find a diner. If you knew of a good diner on the route to every concert from to concert, you'd be in a good shape. But, I feel like that idea of just where are we eating, when are we eating, drives so much of tour life of being on the road. Why are those questions so important? And can the answers make or break a tour?
Definitely. I mean, the thing is, Alex and I were the two kind of food obsessed individuals in our respective bands. So for us, I think Mealtimes had there was a lot of weight, put on Mealtimes for us. They really could make or break a day. But what we learned in putting together this book is that, not everybody has that relationship to it. So for us, they can make or break a day because it's important to us to get a sense of place from where we're eating, or break up the day by experiencing some kind of special regional thing that we might not get at home or in the next city. But for other people, navigating Mealtimes can make or break a day because they need to get something that, is okay for them to eat because of a medical condition or, any number of other more challenging things. So there's so many ways to interpret that question. And I think that was really, fascinating for us to kind of experience as we were talking to all the different contributors for this book. But yeah, for the two of us, it's all about man, how do I kind of come away from being in, Tucson, Arizona for one night, really knowing that I was in Tucson, Arizona. And the answer is a Sonoran hot dog.
Oh yeah, exactly. 100%.
Or a Raspado or, any number. There's Tucson, by the way, the only UNESCO city of gastronomy in the United States.
Shout out.
You can run wild there.
Can run wild. Let me ask you something. Because all the contributors in this book are either musicians or they're tied to their hosts or their bookers or things like that. Was there anyone that you wanted in the book who you reached out to and they said, I don't really care about food?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is yes. Alex, I saw you perk up when you
There are a couple. There are a few different ways to answer this, and like, let's go. Let's peek behind the curtain here. Like, one of the people, the sort of like the more like salacious, no pun intended, details. This is not exactly an answer to your question directly, but I think I feel okay sharing it. You know, like we felt it was we had to at least put the project across James Murphy's desk, because he is like this sort of avowed enjoyer of fine wine and food, and kind of like posits himself in the food space. And we never got past management. Management loved it. There was like a little crumb. I'm going to keep using the food metaphors that we got. Like, oh, this sounds great. You know, let's get this in front of James, you know, and it just like, it's not like he directly said, I'm not interested in food. We sort of got the message that he wasn't interested in the project, you know. And James, if you're listening, you know, maybe there's time for the you know, second edition or whatever.
Back of the jacket,
but we were
blurb
like,
or second edition.
There are certain musicians who sort of like, you know, now all of us included, who sort of emphasize that they are interested in the food space. He's one of them. We never got him across the finish line. There's another guy, an LA musician who's played with this band called Flatworms, and he was drummed with the Babies and Kevin Morby, a guy named Justin Sullivan, really good friend of mine, diner aficionado. We talked to him for a while, and his whole thing is, I don't care about food on the road. And we wanted that essay. He was just like, give me,
interesting.
You know, give me Starbucks 3 times a day. I need the predictability. Please don't throw a curveball my way.
Sure.
You know, like that's like the shocking stuff we found was like, the book to me was like, these are the only things that matter on the road: the show and the food. And like, when pressed, maybe the food more. You know?
Friends.
Like that's
and your friends and your friends.
Of course. I don't want to make anybody mad here. I love touring, you know, but it's like these are the things I remember. Yeah. You know, and so Justin, I really wanted the essay of like, tell me why you would rather eat at Starbucks 3 times a day than figure out where else to eat. And like, he was into it. It's just like, it never happened. I don't know why. You know, no disrespect to him, great guy, but that's an essay I would have loved.
I think what drives, but what's driving so much of the book really are the stories. You know, I think it's one thing to say, oh, I had, this Kevin Morby's like Thanksgiving, or, you know, there was the ones about the Japan and the tasting menu. Like, it's one thing to say, like, I did it, but what elevates the book and the insights are the stories and the situations behind it. How quickly did you realize you were going to tell these stories, that you wanted these stories more than just saying, tell me about a meal you had on the road?
Well, I mean, so I'm a food journalist.
Sure, of course.
And so my kind of journalistic instinct is to push for a fuller story. And so I think, you know, one of the like germs of this idea was like, maybe it's going to be a guidebook, or maybe it's going to be like, you know, bands recommending places to eat. And I will say I'm involved in another thing that is which, and actually, Darren, you talked to my friend Adam Schatz, who
shout out Adam,
with whom and our friend Charlie, we made this site Tour Food that's kind of like you can search for places along your route, whatever. So it is that. But yeah, I think like because of the timing of when we started working on this, which was deep COVID lockdown era, there was a lot of introspection, and I was basically I was just thinking like, we need to dig deeper, and we need to like kind of come up with more of the like why. Like, yeah, you had this tasting menu at Airwaves, but why are you still thinking about it now? And what about it might resonate with other people who haven't been on tour? And the most important thing, I think, is what can people kind of sneakily learn about the experience of being in a band and going on tour from your story? And each of the stories there's this little checklist that each story in our minds ticks off like this sneaky little lesson about life on the road that you kind of get from the food story. So, yeah.
Yeah. You know, you brought up the pandemic, and there was touring before and touring after. And in addition to how much changed, so much of being on the road changed, including restaurants closing and things like that. Now that you're back on the road, now that you're in full swing, what have you noticed is like the biggest difference when it comes to eating on the road pre and post pandemic?
I might jump in first just to say that I left my band.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, fair.
I don't tour anymore, but that in and of itself is interesting because like the pandemic made me consider my relationship to touring to the degree where I was like, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. And it was kind of an interesting thing that happened like during the course of working on this book. But yeah, Alex is out there on the road, so I'll let him.
It's funny the way I'll answer that because like this funny thing happened that it's such a cliche at this point, but this was like a born of pandemic project, which made it more sentimental to get these road stories from people at the time because we're all waxing poetic about what we miss, both about just sitting inside and eating at restaurants and being able to play shows, obviously. But like I tour, so now, real estate's got a record out. Shout out Real Estate, Press Cycle. We're on it, so I've done like the 6 weeks of US touring recently, but before that we were just like the first tour I went back on was late 2021 and was like we just got to get back out on the road. We got to work. We got to like do something. We got to like prove to ourselves that we're still a band that can do this. And juxtaposing, like I would say weirdly, like the 2024 stuff feels similar to pre-pandy, except that I feel older and I have to like watch what I eat more. But the 2021, but just as a juxtaposition, like the 2021 tour, it was crazy. It was like, it was still like, okay, we're vaccinated, but like if one person gets COVID, we're going to cancel the whole tour, which would be a disaster. And like some people haven't had it. And like, we're all like very much way more afraid of this thing than we are right now, even though it was kind of like we were able to tour. And one of the rules that we made was like, we're not going to eat, we're not going to dine inside anywhere. We're not going to do that. And we're going to like grab stuff and bring it back to the green room and just eat there. And we're going to like keep the bubble, as best we can. And it was awful. It was like, it's so central to the way that we tour as Real Estate is like breaking bread together somewhere that's not the venue in order to like prove to ourselves that we're alive and that we can like do something and have this cultural experience like Luke was alluding to, that like it actually was like, and Luke's gonna love this because he always likes the sort of like the like he's like the bad cop of like what's the crappy stuff that happened on the road. And
give me the darkness.
I won't name names, but there was a member of the band who was like, there were sort of like diametric poles of like we cannot risk getting COVID at all and don't break the bubble, and there was like fuck it, man. And like those were two extremes of the touring party, and like, and it was like, and there were people who like agreed to not dine inside anywhere, and they're like, well, I'm just going. Like, it created it was like I need to sit at the bar and have a drink and a burger. Like that happened, and there was like tension, and it was just like, it was like unhappy family. Like our family road dynamic, which really it is a family, relies on, it's like cheesy. It's like Leave It to Beaver. It's like in this family, we sit around the table together before the show, and like not having that. And it was just, and people can opt out. Like, sometimes you're like, not for me tonight, I don't want to go, or bring me back something, whatever, that's fine. But like having the tension, or I would say that was like the tensest point of the immediate post-COVID tour is like, how are we going to eat? And it's like depressing. Like we got really good food, but like sitting and eating out of a plastic tub, like shoveling.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Face.
It's not the same.
It's not great. It's not great. So I'm glad.
It's not great.
Like, we're back. Yeah.
But Alex, I remember from that time, and I'm not playing devil's advocate. I just found this interesting when you told me this, that you felt after resuming touring following lockdown, that you felt a little bit more like locked into the performance aspect, and that took on like a new importance for you. Not that it wasn't important, but that it had.
Yeah,
it had
maybe
like
I've even forgotten that now that I can like dine. Just
yeah. Now that I go back to having a burger and a bourbon at the bar,
it's like still totally.
So now that you're back on the road, and Luke, I know your website taps into this a little bit. Because it used to be an old network, right? It used to be you knew people who were on the road before, and they tell you where to eat or where to go. Just the little secrets of being out there. Does that network still exist? Has it changed? How has it shifted in learning about where to eat on the road now that it's so much more digital and so much more democratized?
I think there's still a heavy word of mouth component. And like, I have the folks in other bands that I trust, Alex has those people too. And I'm honored to be one of them. But I do think like even in the past 5 years since I was last touring heavily, I do think like people are just phone to brain, like in the back of the van all day, looking at pictures of food on Instagram in a way that wasn't always, happening. So I feel like that's probably plays a pretty major role for a lot of people.
It's weird, like learning how to read Yelp, because I've never left a Yelp review in my life, but I like trust it to the like. But learning to not trust it, like that's like because we do a lot of that. Like, let's say we have a drive day, like that's what we're looking for. We're like, okay, where are we going to stop for? Like a drive day for those of you who are maybe not familiar with the life is like there's no show today, and because the reason there's no show today is because we need to drive like 10 to 12 hours between these two cities, and it's kind of a day off, but it's just like a day of really intense travel. And oftentimes, like for me, speaking personally, like the most exciting thing about that day is like, where are we going to break for dinner? And like that the whole day will be like either me or, got to shout out keyboard player Matt Coleman of Real Estate, like constantly digging in. I'm like, okay, we're going to be it's just like you're doing this math of like, where will we be 6 hours from now when we're hungry and what's available for us to eat? And it's like, you're relying on Yelp in those places. Cause a lot of times it's not like Tucson. Your midpoint in the drive, right? It's like
it is TripAdvisor, it is Yelp. Yeah.
And but learning how to parse that. Go ahead, Luke.
I was just going to say Yelp loomed larger for me, and now I feel like Google reviews have maybe taken on more weight than Yelp. I still maintain like a pretty complex system of cross-referencing that includes
you have to.
all of the above, but I might like look a little bit sooner at Google reviews than at Yelp.
But I have to imagine that with the bands of your size and crisscrossing and hitting similar venues, there's got to be some – I know you have each other, but are there other well-known food people, sort of food gurus or promoters out there who you could say, hey, we are in between here
You're talking
and here.
to him, Darren.
Oh, that's it? I have the
no,
great
Luke's
trust.
my guy. Truly. I mean, Luke is really Luke is my guy. But honestly, I feel like, and we have that. That's kind of why we were like, let's make the book together, because it was like continuously like this was being like the center of our relationship. But I will say that there's like it's not exactly an answer to your question, and there are other people, and I tapped them all to be in the book. But like. When I feel like I discover a new one and then I can share it with Luke or whoever, like, cause it's not just going back to the Yelp thing. Like to me, it's not about the food anymore. It is, but like as I've gotten older, I'm like vibe, energy, like historic significance of this place. Like, and I'm bummed that I can't recall the name of this place off the top of my head, but we were in like rural Oregon, and I sent Luke a bunch of photos of this place. And we went to this like seriously in the middle of nowhere, like blue-haired lady steakhouse. With like it was insane. And it was just like the vibe, the food was fine. The vibe was out of this world. It was like a salad bar in a wet covered wagon, like wagon wheel.
Haynes, right?
And what's
Haynes Steakhouse?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Haynes?
And that sounds right. And there was like a giant panda bear. Like a stuffed animal panda bear sitting at a table alone, like permanently, and like all this. And it was just like, how did I end up in this weird place? And it's amazing. And like, that's the one for me now. Like somebody taps me like, hey, we're driving between San Francisco and Portland. Oh, you got to go here,
I was just going to say, to answer your question like slightly more seriously than saying that I'm the guy, which is, at least partially serious. The real thing, which comes up in our book, is that at least in the United States, our experience has not really been that promoters or people at venues are like stoked to take you out for a great dinner or even recommend somewhere great to eat near their venue. My experience has been they don't give a shit.
It's so wild.
And so really that what you're kind of maybe imagining or describing happens far more frequently in Europe. And so in Europe, the kind of crisscross trails that host bands of our size, there are established places that promoters take you to, or that, that are used to hosting bands and stuff, and a wonderful network of people, DIY promoters and bigger show promoters who cook for the bands they bring over and who are psyched to take bands out to great places to eat that showcase the local food. So that's really a thing. And not just in Europe, in all international territories, but in the US, it's not a thing, and it's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was promoting and bringing in a lot of European DJs, one of the first things they would ask me, like, where are we eating? And I was so psyched to be taking them to Prime Meats or Roberta's or other places in Brooklyn that I thought it was normal, but that is not the case.
People like us aren't normal.
No,
And I feel like
it's what I'm realizing as I get older.
Yeah, there's a lot of wanderlust like from American bands, even talking about like UK road stops and how much we fetishize those, about the traveling in other countries. And that's a big, it's like I remember first early real estate tours like 15 years ago, playing small shows, like grimy clubs that smelled like beer and having the promoters being like, I'm going to take you out to this like beautiful Portuguese meal. We're going to eat squid ink tonight, and just being like, oh, I feel cared for. Like I've made it. There's this a sense of like getting to tour in Europe that American bands have. That means like you've really arrived at some initial platform. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's like the food and the experience of being taken care of with food is actually a part of what makes it feel special. Big part of it.
Absolutely.
100%. 100%. All right, let's take a quick musical break. The next song we have up is Wonder Years. What's the story behind it?
This one, I just thought I'd dig into the well of tunes that I've personally written for real estate. It's kind of a beloved older one off of the album Days. And I wanted to see what it would sound like playing it on my own.
Awesome. Well, let's hear it. Here we go. Wonder Years live on Snacky Tunes on HRN.
Whether you're a chef or just love going to restaurants, you know the best ingredients are everything, especially when it comes to beef. In Northern Australia, there's a different approach to raising high-quality beef. Westholme, based in Queensland and Northern Territory, is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. They steward 16 million acres of rangeland, guided by their natural ecosystem, and are led by a belief that if they balance the needs of their cattle with the needs of their environment, both can thrive. Their team of rangeland experts and nature managers use a variety of tools like satellites that assess grass health and on-the-ground research to monitor and respond to the welfare of the environment. These cows graze on native grasses like Mitchell grass, which is only found in Australia, along with dozens of other plants, herbs, and seasonal legumes. Cattle are happier when they have the freedom to forage and explore, so Westholme ensures they can roam wild, foraging at will for the first 2 to 3 years of their lives. The result is high-quality Wagyu beef that reflects the terroir of Northern Australia and a flavor suited to complement any cuisine. Westholme believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
Welcome back to Snacky Tunes. we are chatting with Alex and Luke, whose new book, Taste in Music, is a great read. All stories from some of your favorite musicians or musicians who will become your favorite musicians, or Chappell Roan taught us your musician's favorite musician and their time eating on the road. I realized I never asked in the first part how you two met, but not just met, but realized that you were two sides of the same coin about food. What was that like? Tell me the story.
It's happened really quickly, and something that I didn't even realize until recently is that Luke and I met over a box of donuts, and this was so basically Real Estate and Frankie Cosmos went on a tour together. It was a coup for
Shout out John
Real
Chavez.
Estate. Yeah, that was it. Was Chavez Core, and we were shared booking agent at the time, and we were like, "Oh man, do you think Frankie Cosmos would go on tour with us?" Because they were way too big of a band to take this support gig, but cool people as they are, they thought it was a good idea, and so we went on this sort of like. We had this like immaculate, like instantaneous friendship between all members of the band that was really beautiful. Honestly, unmatched for me
Awesome.
in recent memory. Maybe the band Always we had like a similar vibe going with back when, if you can believe it, they were small enough to open for us. Now it would be the other way around, I think. But anyway, Luke and I met. Like I remember meeting every member of Frankie Cosmos in Boston. The Royale was the venue, right? That was the first show of the tour, and there's this kind of like grand ballroom staircase because it's in like a weird hotel. And I was like, "Oh, there's the Frankie Cosmos crew. I'm going to go say hi." And they were like, "Hey, do you want a donut?" And they had this like giant box of donuts, like kind of artisanal donuts, a little bit of like voodoo donut vibe that some fan had gifted them. And I was like, "Yeah, I really want a donut. This is very exciting for me." And we were all chatting, and I don't remember exactly how it came up that we were like the resident like absolute food obsessives, but it was that same day. Like you were like telling me about bagels in Burlington,
I wish I could
and I was
remember.
like, I can't believe it. There's no such thing as a Burlington bagel.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And
I mean, usually I feel like when we would get on the road with a new band, one of the first things I would say to any member is just like, "Where are you having dinner tonight?" or something like that. And,
exactly.
That's how you get there. Yeah.
And 3 out of 4 of them go, "I don't really give
I don't know.
shit."
Yeah, exactly.
Or they go, "Talk to fill in the blank."
Right,
and then you
exactly.
two just have a little meet cute.
Exactly.
Talking about being at shows and things like that, I know that when you say backstage and green room and some pretty sad images come to mind. But when you're talking about Europe, I feel like better ideas come to mind.
Well, give me
a small. Yeah, I was going to say, just give me a small taste on the European green rooms.
I'm going to qualify it with one thing and then let Luke go, but it's like, it's one of the things that's kind of fun and we thought interesting about this book is there is this sort of preconceived notion of like backstage. I want backstage passes. What's going on backstage? That's the place I really want to get to. And it's like, the reality is for bands at those levels, like there's nothing going on back there. There's not good food back there, like in the US predominantly. Like it's more exciting to be in the crowd. And then, that's a fun kind of detail of the book, but I'll let Luke talk about the European backstage, which can be more thrilling.
Yeah, I mean, the rooms themselves are not always like that much more impressive than their American counterparts, but it's more about like the spread that greets you when you arrive to the green room, which always includes just like a plethora of local products from, across the spectrum of sweet and savory, always fresh, local, interesting. I mean, like without exception, always kind of engaging and really, really sets me off. But in a good way. I hope that came across as a good.
No, I got it.
Activates me. But the other thing is that like some venues, especially in France, this is a thing. We'll have like a dining room for the band that's a part of the backstage area.
Amazing.
So like the actual green room where you're sitting on a couch before the show is one space, but then there's a room like with a proper table and like dinnerware and cutlery, and maybe there's a little kitchen off of that room where there's a chef that works for the venue specifically to cook for bands. It's a because of arts funding. Sorry, I have COVID right now, so I'm just stumbling
You're
over my
doing
words
great.
a little
You're
bit.
doing great.
Big reveal.
But no, it's funny talking about the underpinnings of this book, and I'm living it. But no, it's because I was going to say it's a symptom of arts funding. Symptom is my brain went there because of COVID. Symptom is not the right word. It's because of the wonderful arts funding that exists in France that these venues are able to provide such a wonderful hospitality experience for visiting bands. And it's funny because sometimes, you'll be playing in these super nice venues that are way too big for your band when you're a smaller and mid-sized indie band touring in that part of the world, because there's not the audience in Lille or Nantes or Rennes to come and fill up that 1,000-cap room for your mid-sized indie band. There's just not that number of even young people who have heard of your band. But the venue has a chef and a dining room and the budget to give you a guarantee, and you can have a wonderful night there regardless. And at the end of the day, it's a prime example of remembering the meal maybe a little bit more than the show. Not that the shows aren't great. We're grateful to play the shows, but yeah.
Yeah, but you sort of touch on that. And look, some bands come out to the same set every night. Some bands mix it up. And I'm not diminishing a great show or things like that. But I feel like when my buddies get off the road, I'm talking to someone, they're like, the reason why they're out there, the 25 or whatever shows, yeah, they went well. And then the stories I hear are about the meals, are about the moments in between. Why is that?
I think it's there's something really to this of we all know that so much culture of an individual place is wrapped up in its food, good or bad, Right. And I think that that's what it keeps coming back to for me as a person who enjoys the sort of adventure of eating on the road is how can I know that I have maybe 6 hours to discover this city that I'm traveling to. And how can I know that I was really here? I want to get the thing that they make here that I can't get anywhere else. Or I've had a croissant, as I like to say, my entire life. But if I'm in France, let's try the real thing. And it is astounding. And everybody knows when you bite into the real thing, it's completely different than the sort of facsimile.
Completely different.
And so and it's that's what I remember about being in this place. It's all I have time to remember on this
and the show's
lifestyle.
There's only so much you can say in terms of a engaging story about how a show has gone. The show's great or the show sucks or the show's medium. And there's not so many kind of interesting, engaging, memorable, super different things that can happen from night to night. It's the crowd had great energy in Atlanta, or the sound guy was a dickhead and, LA or whatever. Those are the things, but that's not like a story. That's just a little thing.
That's just a moment. Yeah.
It's just a moment. So there's really, I don't know, it feels almost weird to say this, but there's not a lot to say about the shows. I feel like there's just so much more to say about what happens in between them.
You were talking earlier.
Drama.
Yeah. I mean, there's drama, but no one's going to say that. I mean, listen, you were talking earlier about the vibe of a spot versus the food. And I feel like as I've gotten older, especially if I'm in a new place or I'm sort of just grabbing a meal, know that caution to the wind a little bit. That vibe and service outweighs the food a little bit more. Have you guys gotten to that point where you're I will take the worst service, a shit vibe, if the food is bang on because I've been in a van for 9 hours?
Actually, for me, it's more the inverse. And I'll qualify this with, again, this was towards the end of my heaviest touring days, which was just prior to COVID. But for me, it's I'll take more neutral food if it's a comfortable environment where they're going to be nice to me. Because
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm into.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I understood the opposite. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I reached that point after maybe 5 or 6 years of doing it. And then, my priorities really shifted. And I just found that I couldn't support the same, quotas of regional specialties, which often sit a little heavier, at least in this country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My answer to the same question is I think I'm discovering about myself. It's this never ending quest for what I feel is authenticity. And
big word. We've talked about on the show quite a bit. Yeah.
A lot of the like casual fine dining spots across our country, I'll say worldwide really, which I love, I can get down with that kind of vibe, but there is this kind of like, it's like the Instagram coffee shop. We all know what it's going to look like in there, like the flattening of culture, that we kind of experience through the internet.
Yes, of course.
It's like, I find myself drawn to like old haunts, like the Musso and Frank of Pittsburgh, or any given town is like, wow, man. Like, I don't know why it's just like, it's like, and oftentimes like, I love that kind of food, but it's not the best choice for me to make before a show, or it's like not the most healthy, or it's not even like the most delicious in this modern age of like incredible, the bear and gastronomical revolution, and everybody's into food now, which is great. And I benefit from that. We all do. But it's like, I am finding as I get older, I'm like, give me your salt of the earth, like classic joint is like, I'm really into it. And I think maybe it's an investigation that I need to do for myself. It's like, why do I feel like this is more real or authentic or something? But I'm all about it.
I tend to agree with you, and I think the same could be said about maybe bands or other things in pop culture now, where it's like you can so much easier pull components from things you like and be like, this is what we're making, and it looks and feels new. But if you know what you're talking about, you're like, well, you took that from there, you took that from there, and took it from there. And I feel that those types of, and the word again, authentic is such a tricky word, but those salt of the earth type of restaurants are those that are feeling unique, hit a little harder, make a lasting memory. And again, going back to America versus Europe, you're just going to find older, more like dug in restaurants than the States.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In reading the book, which I absolutely loved, the Kevin Morby Thanksgiving story sticks out to me a lot, because it seems like that meal saved the tour. And I never thought that one meal could save. Well, there's two things there. One, that a tour could be so bad for weeks on end that you could just never find the right foot. And that two, that it can really turn around by getting together around a table. Mm-hmm. Have you guys experienced that, or was it just other people's stories where you found inspiration about how good a meal can be when you're hurting, being out, grinding it out?
I almost wrote this story for the book, but and it would have been great, here, but it didn't make it in. So I'd love to tell it.
Go.
I don't know if it was a whole tour, but we had a really bad day, and it was a bad string of days. I think this is a European tour, so it's not all puppies and roses over there either all the time.
Sure, of course. Wait, you're saying Europe has a checkered past? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. The band was kind of like, we'd had just harrowing travel days where I think I might be confusing tours, but something like the van broke down and we in the middle of the night needed to rent 2 SUVs and transfer all our gear and split up and drive through the night and just crazy exhausting situations. And we were playing this really small kind of niche festival in the boot heel of Italy near the city called Santa Caterina. And for some reason we flew into, and this is going to sound swanky, but it's not, it was we flew into Naples. It was the closest airport, which was 6 hours drive or something from where we were going.
You've been to Naples.
For some reason, the promoter flew us into there and they were like, don't worry, we're going to, transport you. And at this point we're we're not the biggest band ever, but we're used to a certain degree of creature comforts when a festival is going to come pick you up. It's
sure.
A Sprinter van with air conditioning. This was an Astro van that was really loud and barely running and had no AC, and it's dead of summer and was super, super hot, and we're coming off an exhausting travel day already, and we're this is we're looking at each other this is completely psychotic. And we're driving, I don't remember how long. It felt like an eternity. We're at wit's end. We're completely fried. We're at each other's throats. We're where are we being taken? We're being kidnapped, basically, and I remember, every American has this fanciful idea of Italy, the great Italian, you can't go wrong. All the food is from the gods, so we're in order to self-soothe, we're saying to ourselves okay, this travel day is horrendous, but when we get wherever we're going, we're going to go to the best restaurant in town and like do it up. We're just going to like, that's what we're going to do. This is the only
5
thing that we
stars.
can possibly think of to look forward to. Yeah. Like 5 out of 5 on Yelp, $4 signs, whatever. Like, let's get that, like that pasta that's tasted like nothing else, or whatever. These ideas, this platonic idea of the Italian dinner. And we get there, and we're in this really small town. They're bringing us actually to a house that they're allowing us to stay in for the night. It was all kind of like bootstrappy, DIY. And we're like, we want to go. Bring us to the finest restaurant in town.
Take us to your finest.
Your finest.
Yeah, take us to your finest establishment. And they're like, oh, it's kind of late.
No.
They're like, the restaurants here are like not that good. We're gonna cook for you. We thought we would cook for you. And us, like hindsight's 2020. Like it seemed like a really rude response, but we were like, no, we don't want to deal with this.
Yeah, but
bring us to a restaurant.
But now today,
we want. Yeah. Serve us at a restaurant. And they're like, no. Like, they really, really trust us. You don't want to go to any of the restaurants. Like, we're going to cook something. It'll be nice. And I'm thinking of, like, promoter pasta, like a crappy whatever. I went and, like, cooled off, called my girlfriend or something, took a walk. I come back to this mall. It's like, I did. I was like, I got to get out of here. I come back to this, like, beautiful, gorgeous, like, meal. It was like polenta and these herbs and a beautiful sausage and wine, and it was like everything that you're eating right now was grown on this property. Like we collected the rainwater to water the herbs, and like the olive oil was pressed from that olive tree over there, and like it actually was the platonic idea of the local incredible Italian meal, with like, and I was like, this is my father's wine. My father makes this wine, and I was like, oh, does he sell it? Or does he have all? And they're like laughing at me, like no, it's like
commerce.
He just makes it. It's a family wine. Yeah.
And that was like the actual hospitality. I felt so foolish for wanting to go to a restaurant. I was like, oh my God, what could possibly replace this experience? And it saved the day, saved the tour.
I mean, it's so amazing because nowadays, knowing what you know, and I'm sure talking to people in this book, if someone in some country was like, we're going to cook for you, I was like, this is actually what I want. And when I go to the restaurant, I'm trying to get as close to as someone cooking for me in their kitchen as possible to feel that warmth.
Yes, definitely.
It was a stupid American thing.
So
of like, take us to the best restaurant.
Oh,
like, yeah.
Well, it's not because I've had promoter pasta and also like commune East European mush, vegan mush. Like it wasn't what it used to be, but it's now. So just real quick, the book is great. You've done so much research and writing. You've talked to so many people. How has your perspective on dining on the road and music changed at all? Or has it just, re-emphasized or reconfirmed what you were already thinking before you started the book?
Well, I mean, I don't know if this is exactly the right answer for me, but I alluded to this earlier. Just an interesting thing that happened to me personally while working on it was my decision to stop touring. And I didn't see that as related to the book, but in hindsight, like I was thinking about touring from like this wide angle perspective, like quite hard and in a way that I hadn't thought about it before. And I do think there was some sort of shift. I mean, there's all sorts of other reasons why. And this was a decision that my wife, who is also my bandmate, and I made together. But there's all sorts of stuff that figured into the decision. But I do think spending this much time really considering what it means to go on tour as a mid-sized indie band did kind of lead me to this almost inevitable, like, maybe this isn't the lifestyle for me, like, long term. And to be fair, I never thought or was planning to be like a total lifer. I always knew that sometime in my early 30s, I would probably hang it up. But the pandemic disrupting things like changed it. Working on this book changed it. And I left maybe a little earlier than I would have otherwise. And I think there was a part of me pre-book that was really bummed to have to cancel the last tours that we had to cancel before the pandemic. And like that really was kind of itching to have a few more like last rides, but I kind of achieved this like peace I think through what I learned from working on the book with, just being happy with what I was able to do on tour and just accepting that like it's an insane way to live and nobody should do it. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Pass it to me.
Just for me, just for me, it was time to hang it up. But
And Alex, as someone who's still on the road and Luke just saying it's insane, how do you feel?
Yeah. The foolish lifer here, approaching 40, gray in my beard. It's what I learned from the book and how it's changed for me is that like I somewhat naively went into this process being like, eating on tour is great. I love it. It's my favorite thing. It's like what I think about all the time. And it's like Luke feels that way too. And like not everybody feels that way. There's a lot of like diversity of thought and opinion. And like for some people in the book, food, like figuring out how to feed themselves is a very real just like problem that needs solving, or like, people who, we didn't get that Justin Sullivan story, but there are folks like Bob Mould is like, it's a shift meal. It's military.
Great story.
It's a wartime.
Yeah.
He calls it a wartime meal. He's like, I get 12 ounces of roast turkey breast and I eat it T-6 hours before showtime. Like literally says that.
I think the turkey breast was after, and he like keeps it in his pocket. I was like, man, if that's, I mean, good on you because you know what your body needs, but yikes, that was one of the most specific details in the book about like this is what touring is.
Yeah,
this is
and the
not
fact
blameless.
that he was like, yeah, I'd love to talk about this. He wasn't. It's not like he's like us, like, oh yeah, these are all my favorite places to go on the road. He's like, yeah, I want to talk about eating on tour, and like for me, it's just a problem that needs solving. And like, so that was really illuminating for me. Is like it wasn't all just like, Anthony Bourdain in a rock band, which is like that was kind of like the sort of like fun side of the book that I think we like sold to ourselves. And there's a little bit of that in there, but there's a lot of other stuff where it's just like, and it's still interesting to read and hear about and illuminating about this weird lifestyle, even when people aren't like, I'm trying to like eat every regional delicacy, which is my approach. And there's so many other different approaches out there. So that's how it's changed my thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. One last question. It's your turn to drive. You're getting in the car. It's not morning. It is like primetime drive. What is the first song you put on?
Ooh.
I guess I should have had something in my back, but I should have had my 12 ounces of turkey ready to just like pull out and answer there.
I love 12 Ounces to Turkey by Sublime. One of my favorite songs of all time.
Yeah,
totally.
Sublime. The answer is Sublime. Oh man, I don't know. I think maybe like, I mean, I just drove. We were talking about off mic, as they say.
Yeah.
About driving to and from Montreal from New York City, which I just did.
Shout out.
I was given the aux cable. I threw on Melody's Echo Chamber, French psych band.
Love it.
Love it. It fit that drive. That was the first thing I put on. I put that on anytime. Love that band.
If I'm trying to get a reaction from the band, good and bad, depending on who the band member is, Jackson Browne, Running on Empty. I love it. It's like the tongue-in-cheek tour song. That's like my like kind of like jokey like I'm behind the wheel now, folks. We toured. Real Estate recently toured with a band called Flory, amazing band, Florry, and they're a good deal younger than us, and they turned us on to this song called Ween Wow, WEENWAO. It's a brand new banger. I don't know if you're gonna play it on the show. It's insane. I think they listen to it in the tour van every day, and then we quickly like it. It's just one of those stupid, very amazing tour things that can only be heard to be believed. But that's a banger for us now for sure. Meanwhile,
I'll dial it up. Listen, speaking of bangers, Taste This Music out on Chronicle Books. Pre-order, get it now. Support your local bookstores, and then. You mentioned you have an event coming up in Greenpoint in Brooklyn, correct?
Yeah, the launch is September 20 at Archistratus in Greenpoint, and then we've got things coming together in DC, LA, and Alex's town, Bolinas, California. So
awesome.
That'll all be,
Well, I'll see you when you come to LA. The book is great. Congratulations. Big shout out to John and Erica for helping to set this up. And Alex, you're taking us home with Home I Love. Quick story behind this song.
This is from second record I made, solo-ish record, Alex Bleeker and the Freaks. Love the song. Haven't played it in too long. Felt like it needed some love. Home I Love. Let's bring it back into the consciousness.
I mean, bring it back. Well, listen, congratulations. Thanks again for stopping by. Here we go. Home I Love, live on Snacky Tunes on HRN. We'll see you next week.
Look down and my hands are shaking. I thought my heart was breaking. Love, my love. Kissed in the porcelain. Laid down my head beside my love, my love. Woke up, it was hard to find you. My song not to find my love. My love, my love, my love will make you see when you come back to me. My love, my love, my love, my fall asleep at the kitchen table, watch all my dreams on cable. Love, my love. That's the way it has to be. Hindsight was 2020. I'm blind and I can't see what lies ahead for you and me. My love, my love, my love will make you see when you come back to me. My love, my love, my
We talk about food, we talk about music with musical dudes. Finger on the pulse, snacky tunes.
Snacky Tunes is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.